Hi, I'm CJ Grebb. I'm the project art director for the Elder Scrolls Online.
And I'm Rich Lambert, and I'm the creative director on Elder Scrolls Online. And we're here today
to answer some community questions.
We are not changing minimum specs at all.
We do a pass towards the end of every project where we look at metrics, and sometimes we do draw back on effects and anything that might be dragging areas down, but we're not planning on changing specs for this one.
I think the best way to answer that is just wait and see. I think we have fun every time we do something.
All the time. Yeah. I get the fun part of, at the beginning of a project, we get to let the concept artists loose on, they break down the zone for us and they let us know what the story is going to be, and then we let the talented concept artists just go and play for a little bit, throw some ideas out. And Rich sees those generally after they kind of filter through me the first time, and I'm kind of selecting, let's send this up the chain and see how it goes. But yeah, it's a fun creative process, pretty much beginning to end.
And it's a challenge on both sides. Going into something that has been seen before in previous games, the challenge is trying to reimagine that 1,000 years in the past and what that means and how that works. And then the flip to that, when we go and do something completely brand new, like we just get to have that creative freedom, and it's invigorating.
Absolutely. Go ahead.
That's a Bill question. So Bill's our lead writer, and we leave a lot of that stuff up to them. As long as it fits within the lore and doesn't kind of come across as crude or offensive, we just let the team do what they want and have fun with it. As to favorite fish name, I don't know that I have a favorite fish name.
I don't have one.
Yeah.
Wow, one of the divines.
That doesn't happen very often.
That's lofty.
Yeah.
I like Varanus a lot, but I don't know. I think he was kind of properly enshrined at the end of his story.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think one of the things we always do when we're looking at characters in game, especially fan favorites, is we want to make sure that we do them justice if we bring them back. So no promises. It might happen at some point, but you'll just have to wait and see.
He's certainly popular enough for us to take a look at him again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the Hushed are essentially mortals that have spent too long in Apocrypha and have essentially been driven feral and mad.
And partook of information and reading of information that really wasn't meant for mortal eyes, right?
They're kind of in that kind of no man's land, so to speak, of sentient but not really in control of their faculties. So they're a lot more feral than anything else. The housing slot question.
You go ahead. I'm not touching this one.
So we know that that's a pain point in the community, right? Like everybody wants more slots, but it's a performance issue. We take very great care in ensuring that players can always log into their homes. If we didn't do that and we allowed the cap to go higher than what it is now, there will be times when players just simply can't log in to their home because it will crash. So that's why there's limits there.
Unfortunate limits.
Yeah, we are actively looking at trying to find ways to improve that and increase that limit, but they're there for a reason. It's not because we're jerks. So we actually just did a pass at all of kind of our weekly, daily timers. So they all reset at relatively the same time now. At the same date. So that should make it much, much easier for players to kind of plan things, knowing that, hey, the daily resets every day at, I think it's 3 a.m. in North America and 10 a.m. in Europe. I think that's the way it works right now, but it's always at the same time every day, and the weeklies reset the same day, time during the week as well. So that was how we went about doing that, trying to make that a little bit better for players. So that's a tough one, because one of the reasons we don't have that right now is because players start to gatekeep, and we don't want that at all in our game. ESO is a game that should be played by everybody and can be played by everybody, and there's no right way to play it. So as soon as we start implementing that kind of feature and functionality in there, players start to tell other players they can't play.
Our artists search the world wide and far for inspiration. We take from all over the world, and generally when we start a new biome, we have a specific, we assign an artist the task of go out there and think about the plants and the animals, the flora and the fauna that will be, included in this zone. And some of it we have the legacy of Elder Scrolls to draw from. We know where some of the lands are that the original inspiration was taken from. We automatically go back there. But then they're allowed to express themselves creatively, right? So they will find some new pieces, bits and bobs here. They'll put a sheet together, show it to me, show it to creative. We all agree, yes, that looks like a good direction, go. A mad scientist named Brad Derrick.
We lock him in a room and he comes up with unbelievable stuff. Brad works really closely with us in terms of mood and feel. So we will pitch the stories to him so he understands the vibe. Very similar to the way we pitch things to CJ and his team, where we'll give them unique words. This year's Necrom was cosmic horror. That helps set the tone and frame. And then, he just kind of wanders around through the zone and does magical Brad things and comes up with just crazy good music.
And often tags us, says, hey, did you guys do any concepts? Can you give me any visuals that I can start to kind of like hang my hat on to kind of get started? And then he just takes off.
It certainly gets more difficult.
Sure, there's plenty of lands left in Tamriel. I think we've got lots of places to go.
We do, and we have Oblivion as well, which is a never-ending source
Right.
of material. But it certainly does get harder because you have to remember what you did. We're going on 9 years now, so, can you remember what we did in the base game off the top of your head?
No.
So it's definitely difficult. My role as creative director is to kind of have a hand in everything. So I work with all of the teams, from story to visuals to the individual systems that are part of the game. And so I work with all of those teams. So if I have questions about something, I will ask. If I feel like we're either missing something or we need something else, I will ask. Obviously, I rely on the subject matter experts. If CJ tells me this is perfect art, well, guess what? It's perfect art. But there's that collaboration that happens in there. And so we talk a lot.
Yeah, we work hand in hand with content. They plant a flag on a hill, right? Here's where we want to go. Here's the theme. Here's what we want to do with that theme. Maybe it's a place we've been before. Maybe it's an all new place. But from there, we reach out into the world. We grab, our sources. We find the things that we want to inspire us. We bring it back in. We start to cook it up and create it. Then it gets sent out to, Rich's team, and they take a look at it and go, yeah, that works for what we want to do. That one's a little off because thematically it's supposed to be darker or maybe even lighter, something like that. Collaboration, talking back and forth. Eventually we whittle it into something where everybody agrees, yeah, that's where we're going. Let's go. Sure. It's a collaboration completely. We depend on content to give us the story, right? That's their job, right? They come up with the overarching themes, the places we're going to go, things we're going to see. But we certainly are open to give our input if we think that a particular location or a particular biome could really use a visual turn one way or the other, or turn up the knob a little bit, so to speak. And that's just about talking to each other and saying, hey, here's an idea. How would this work? And sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Yeah, and the art team storyboards a lot of stuff for us as well, especially throughout the main story, where because they think visually, we generally think words. they can translate a lot of those words into pictures really, really easy. And so the storyboarding sections really help bring out a lot of those visuals. And a lot of that visual storytelling comes from the art team.
We use those words a lot, narrative, storytelling, when we're creating like, what's the story we're telling? What's the narrative? Like, are we telling the story appropriately, purely through the visuals? Because we know they're going to come in, with the script and the acting and the actual sequences that are going to happen. But we're thinking about that same story just in terms of like how it's initially going to look. Like when you walk into the room, is the story being told?
From the outset.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it an intervention. It's
Right.
more like we're there in the room the whole time, right? Because it's a process where the idea gets formulated, it gets passed along, and everybody just separates and goes to work, and then we come back together and we see what's happening, right?
Yeah, I mean, from the very outset, that's one of the things I'm involved in from the very beginning is working with the lead writer and the lead content designer and the zone lead to come up with these ideas of where we're going to go. And then as soon as we have a nascent idea, we get CJ's team involved to help better frame that. It's been a long time since I actually scripted a quest or wrote a character, but yeah, I'm actively involved in all of that. I do regular daily reviews of anything that's ready. Sometimes it's just on paper, sometimes it's actually in engine, and then every step of the way. And my focus really, like the team knows what they're doing and understands how to build quests. We've been doing it a long time. My job is to really make sure that they're telling the stories. A lot of traps that designers get into sometimes is they know the story so well, they forget to tell all the important bits. And so I drag that out of the team when they're kind of going through in those reviews, because I don't have the story in my head as well as the designers do.
We're not involved in the writing of anything, but we do throw ideas out there every once in a while. Either actually in a meeting just saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if X or Y or Z happened? And it sometimes can get into the game. Other examples are if a concept piece or a piece of world building or a piece of even level design is just so compelling that we kind of bring it to content. We say, hey, somebody came up with this. What do you think? Wouldn't that be cool if? And things can adjust and change to kind of accommodate that. It doesn't happen too often, but it happens. Creating cohesion.
Yeah.
Very different.
Especially working from home.
Absolutely.
COVID really changed the way you have to communicate, and you have to be a lot more structured, I guess. Before, when everybody was in the office, you could go to the cafeteria and see somebody there and talk about a problem, or walk by their desk and see that somebody's struggling or they were doing something that didn't look quite right, and you could adjust it right then and there. You can't do that when everybody's at home. You have to book a meeting. So we have learned a lot working from home and kind of developing it. It is the communication, and that's probably the biggest thing that as directors we're responsible for, is making sure people are talking to each other.
Yeah, artists often directly talk to the people who are in charge of creating the quest, writing the quest, doing the encounter work on the quest, right? Like they're not going through me or an art lead. They're directly talking to the people who are actually doing the work of making it, right? And we encourage that, because that direct kind of communication just makes things quicker and more efficient and
better.
Usually better.
Yeah.
For me, I get to do an art review with each team that makes art for the game, and it's a weekly review. And so this is the moment where the teams have been assigned some aspect of the world, coming from the creative side, and they've just let their imaginations run wild, and then they present it to me like, all right, is this what we want to do? And my job is to filter that through. Okay, is it serving the story? Is it Elder Scrolls? Is it gonna do for this team what they want it to do, as far as I understand the story? And then I just kind of get to apply that filter. Yeah, it mostly did it. Maybe a change here or there, and then we get to push it out into the game. And it's just the moment where you get to be a part of the creative process, and you get to see other people's creativity being injected into a, you know, the greatest game of all time, right? So, so that's the best part of my week.
The best part of my job is that every day is different. There's always something new. It's either some fire that needs to get fought, or, you know, some problem that needs to get solved, or I get to review some cool new piece of content or system or whatnot. So I love that aspect. I love being challenged. That is absolutely what running a live game is just putting fires out and solving the next problem. And we have to solve impossible problems every day. Yes, I have a good one about the class. So we spent a long time working on this class, at least a year and a half. And the first 5 months were particularly difficult, and you know, everybody was, you know, pitching ideas for what the class is, what it could be, and the team kept getting hung up on the name of the class. So they were focused on the name, and in order to kind of shut all that down and just really get people freed up, I just called the class Bob one day. And so the class, the Arcanist, was Bob for at least the first year of development before we actually came up with a name.
Yeah, now we're having trouble getting them to stop calling it Bob.
That's right. But it really freed the team, because if you call it an Arcanist or a sorcerer or a bard or whatever, like, that comes with connotations of what the class can and can't do. And we didn't want to, you know, well, we were getting hung up on that, you know, well, it can't do this if it's called that. Well, then just don't call it that, right? So once we did that, then we started coming up with all these interesting ideas and mechanics, and the development really sped up, and we were able to kind of isolate what we wanted and what we liked. And then once we had those mechanics, then we started trying to figure out names that could be a good wrapper to encompass all of it.
When we started to develop the look and feel for Apocrypha, was probably the most fun, because we got to play in a you know, a well-known and beloved part of you know, the Elder Scrolls lore. You know, people coming from the Dragonborn DLC are going to know this area, but we got to do something new, and so the artists really got to express themselves in really creative ways. And it's, you know, it's not over yet. Like, concept team got in there and had some creative ideas. Currently, level designers, world builders are in there making it happen, right? And they're still being creative as we speak right now. back in you know, Hunt Valley, Maryland, there are people doing the work and being creative right now and building that world that's going to look amazing.
A mud crab versus a tome shell. I mean, I would have to lend the nod towards the tome shell. I mean, a magic Daedric hermit crab, like, that to me seems like they're gonna win every time.
That is ridiculous. It would be the mud crab. It would clearly be the
I
mud
see.
crab. What is a tome shell going to do to a mud crab?
Cast
Lay
magic.
on it?
Cast magic.
It's ridiculous. Mud crabs are the most durable creatures in all of Tamriel. It would win without a question.
Okay. I see what you did there.